Welcome back to the Star Trek Critic, where we judge the shows like we know way more than the producers ever did. Like the first regular episode of the series should be a not-to-be-missed show, like Symbiosis or When the Bow Breaks, which have deep meanings. But instead, the first show they picked is The Naked Now, where everyone gets drunk and stupid, so minus the first point. Also, minus 1 point for copying an original series episode to Naked Time. That's something unoriginal like J.J. Abrams would do, so they can do better. And minus 1 point for having a copied script as the first episode. And minus 1 point for just being a bad plot. And we haven't even started the show yet. That's not what the stars look like at Warp 7, so minus 1 more point. Picard is thinking, I hope that woman looking for pretty boys and willing and waiting to do a blowout is actually a woman, because in 2023 it might not be. With lines like this, it makes you think they're watching porn on the screen. Minus 1 point for not scanning the Tsiolkovsky to see this happened. Minus 1 point for not wearing environmental suits when they beamed over. Minus 1 point for not bringing a security research team. There are 1,000 people on that ship. You don't just take the bridge crew everywhere. Minus 1 point for having an airlock on the bridge. Who designs a ship that way? Minus 1 point for Data using a contraction. Minus 1 point for the Tsiolkovsky dedication plaque saying USSR. That's no longer a country. I guess it's okay to show naked orgies as long as everybody is frozen and dead. But minus 1 point, the guy on the left is still breathing. Minus 1 point for strategically placed clothing to get past the censors. A lot of it won't make sense in real life. Riker thinks he's Picard. He's already been infected. Ironically, on a ship where everyone is naked, the only clothed person was in the shower. And you gotta really screw up the ship for everyone to die. Minus 1 point here. The ships should be moving, not the stars. Dr. Crusher mentions her favorite 80s band. This is a rare time they mention decontaminating an away team. Data brags about how well known he is. Then Geordi tells off the chief medical officer and the first officer of the ship. That wasn't very bright, was it? Minus 1 point for Dr. Crusher saying this over the intercom for all to hear. Riker tells Data, let's watch some old Star Trek episodes to find out how to solve this, since our first episode has nothing original in it. Data asks, how could you remember the body in the shower, but not that they were around a collapsing planet and we're around a collapsing star? You didn't see the similarities? Riker says, no, I was just looking at people in showers, that's all. Data is now concerned about his ego. Look closely, Geordi has 2 pillows. Crusher only turns the display on like this so the audience can see, so minus 1 point. Geordi's pillows are now gone, so minus 1 point. No wonder he left sickbay. And minus 1 point for the biobed still showing his vital signs even after he left. Tasha tells security to look for Geordi, then asks Picard for anything else. He says, make it a shipwide search, so minus 1 point. Of course it's going to be a shipwide search. He just needed more lines to fulfill his contract. Minus 1 point for 3 visible black strings holding up the chair. Minus 1 point for the doctor, the head of security, and the captain of the ship not getting on the shipwide intercom and saying, LaForge, go back to sickbay. Minus 1 point for this device. It's really just foreshadowing. Oh look, they use the intercom all the time. If they did it now, Wesley would have said, hey, Geordi's here in my quarters. But they didn't, and now they can't find him. Wesley complains that he's not allowed on the bridge. Of course not, he's not a member of the crew. And why isn't he in school? Minus 1 point for Tasha randomly finding Geordi in the observation lounge. How did no one see him go in there? Did LeVar Burton get extra pay to put in the blind contacts? Because that must be really difficult. Or did Gene Roddenberry say, if you wear the contacts, you get to fill up Tasha's face? And LeVar's response was, okay, but that's not quite what I had in mind. Then Denise Crosby said, don't even think about it. I got my eyes on the android. This is proof that even 400 years in the future, you still can't trust what scientific machines tell you. Picard is worried, of course, and Dr. Crusher is too quick to rule out diseases. And minus 1 point for not taking into consideration the rapid changes of gravity affecting them. NASA is studying those things right now. What was Troy doing with him to feel anything? Oh, that's right, in his mind. Minus 1 point for thinking a blind man would never want normal sight. He talked to Dr. Crusher about that in the last episode. Troy says he's drunk. Crusher says that didn't show up either, and thinks, hey, if this is a new drug that evades testing, maybe we should find out what it is and make a fortune off it. Yes! 400 years in the future, the quality of graphics is going to drop considerably. Wait, was that the great bird of the galaxy? Picard's like, oh look, this episode has already been done before and we didn't know it. Even though you were looking right at it, Commander Riker, you could have told us sooner. And that's the refit Enterprise, not the original. functional. Data says, I number 1. Picard quotes Mr. Spock. Picard sends the cure to Dr. Crusher and she says, thank you, but I already knew that since it's my job to study the side effects of rapidly changing gravity on humans in space. But since I'm a woman and Gene Roddenberry is a sexist, I'm not allowed to look that up myself and need 2 men and a fully functional android to tell me. You gotta admit, Gates McFadden does have backing to her claims. The chief of security just broke into Troy's quarters and trashed the place. Tasha compliments Troy on her clothes and hair, and Deanna's thinking, uh-oh, we can't do these things on an 80s show. Maybe in the 2020s on Discovery. And we can't tell Will about this at all, or he'll come right over for a threesome and the show will get cancelled immediately. I have to tell Tasha that this show is in first-run syndication as aired at 7 instead of 8, so it has to be mainstream family-friendly. Here comes the magic touch of what might happen between the two of them, but it doesn't, and she leaves. Aww. Wait, look at these pictures again. 2 right hands together, and now right and left together, so -1 point. Troy rats out Tasha to the captain, but they are wondering, Deanna, when you were shopping on Farpoint, why did you buy the shelves? -1 point for Data not knowing what the word snootful means. Since Wesley's not allowed on the bridge, he decided to annoy his mother in sickbay. And she knows by now that it spreads by touching, so -1 point for not ordering the crew to put gloves on. After all, on this ship, they touch everything. It looks like their plan is to download all the information, then get out of there as fast as they can. Remember this for later, all they need is impulse power to get away from anything coming at them. So Kenny Cock decided to be an extra on TV one day, and he got really lucky his first day, didn't he? -1 point for McDougal not acknowledging his hail and saying, I'm on my way. That would have solved a lot of problems, and -1 point for Assistant Shimoda not saying, I can't go right now because I'm the only one here. And there are other people there on duty. And Shimoda hasn't been affected just yet, so -1 point for him leaving with Wesley in charge. -1 point for a single set of doors on the turbolift. So only Wesley Crusher can't understand why he's not allowed on the bridge. Everybody else knows he's just a little brat. -1 point since only .1 has passed. More time has passed than that. How old is Wesley supposed to be? I watched the show when it was new, and even then his comments seemed more for 8-year-olds than 14-year-olds. And every single one of them is affected? This isn't right. Shimoda likes bouncing into the force field.
Incredible!
This poem was written by David Gerald for one of his non-Trek books, and that's about all you can recite on public TV.
I don't understand their humor either.
Is there already a man in Tasha's quarters, or is he from somewhere else? Data says, I number 2. Tasha thinks she's Kelly Kapoor.
You wanted me.
The purpose of this scene is not to show off how beautiful Denise Crosby really is, but to prove once and for all that since she has a belly button, she is not a genie. Those rumors are now over. This show is supposed to be a comedy, but what she says next is really dark. And what really sucks is that she is not alone in her situation. But the seriousness is quickly swept aside when she discovers Data is a life-size sex toy who is very good at keeping secrets, which means after this episode, Data will have a career with a line of girls outside his door every night. No wonder he chose Starfleet instead of being a lonely scientist like his father. This virus really turned Shimoda's brain into jello. Wesley needs to be taken to the woodshed after this. And -1 point for not just beaming into the room through the walls. -1 point for not transferring engineering power to another location. The ship's got 500 computer stations for that purpose.
Engineering, transfer to bridge.
Deanna calls William Bill and is currently sensing all the eroticism going on in the ship and having emotional orgasms every 10 minutes. But Riker's dad gave him the birds and the bees talk a long time ago, saying, stay clear of drunk betazoids. So where's the engineering console they always lean over in the later seasons? -1 point for this cheap magic trick. -1 point for Dr. Crusher being the only medic on a ship with over 1,000 people. And if she ordered everyone to put gloves on, this wouldn't be a problem now, would it? Riker says, screw quarantines, those things never work. Geordi has seatbelts on, and now no seatbelts, so -1 point. -1 point for Captain's log talking down to the audience after the commercial break. -1 point for Captain Picard's patience. I would have just beamed him out of there. So he's drunk and he took over the ship and he's gonna get them all killed. -1 point for not just blasting a hole through that window. -1 point for Data being drunk. Androids do not run on water. It was just done so Data could be funny. Crusher comes to tell Picard that she is infected and has a secret. Now Picard is infected, but he didn't really touch her. Maybe there was something on the control controls he's been handling all day. Then Worf contacts Commander Riker and says, Captain Picard and Dr. Crusher just did the nasty in his office. Worf is upset since Klingon blood isn't affected and he doesn't get to be drunk and stupid, and now has to deal with all these plastered humans. McDougal gets to say a funny line. Here is a nice shot of the explosion. Picard is so out of it, he starts quoting the president.
You do know what to do.
You know the thing.
-1 point for not trying to fire at it. And if they rerouted controls of spending all that time trying to get the force field down, this would not be a problem. They already knew that, so -1 point. Now, Wesley is going to get credit for saying Data can clean up the mess that he caused. It must be in their protocol to always leave a log entry right before they all get killed. Riker can make a log entry and walk Data to engineering at the same time. -1 point for not dragging Shimoda out of engineering. He's no help at all. And according to Data, they aren't going to make it. Riker's infected too, but he can handle his liquor, which is better than Picard since he has to dance his way to sickbay and see the doctor. Picard is not thinking straight. Does that mean the closet door is opening? -1 point for visible film crew in the glass. Now it's time to shoot everybody up and go on their happy way. The tractor beam should already have a push mode, so -1 point. Riker is so optimistic, isn't he? Shimoda's thinking, they're gonna put me in waste disposal after what I just did. Seriously, how would a ship so sophisticated not be designed to do that already? It's a good thing Wesley knew there was no one alive on the ship. Did anyone ever tell him? Worf stayed at his post the entire time, was actually in command for a few minutes, and flew them to safety, but never got credit for it. Aww. So Wesley forged Picard's voice, commandeered engineering, did nothing when Shimoda pulled out all the control chips, and destroyed the Silkovsky. This is what Picard is really thinking right now.
I want you to take him, I want you to toss him out the nearest airlock.
Now a birds and the bees lesson for Data. Anytime a girl says, nothing happened, she's lying. Picard is thinking, how do I write this up in my report? Tasha is secretly planning more events she will say never happened. Riker says I number 3, and Riker says engaged this time and not Picard. Benjamin Lum was born in Hawaii with 54 credits, including Seinfeld, Married with Children, and The Nanny. Brooke Bundy has 115 screen credits, including Land of the Lost, Emergency, and Days of Our Lives. The Naked Now, the first Next Generation episode, which made you wonder if they were just going to rewrite every original series script, gets a score of 53%. Yes! Thanks for viewing. Be sure to leave comments below, click that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and check out my other videos and playlists, and I'll see you again soon.